Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to our Coyote Workshop number 1. My name is Caroline Chung, and I'm a Senior Management Analyst here at the City of Brisbane in charge of communications in large part. And we got put in touch with Andrew Hewen from the Department of Fish and Wildlife after one of your fellow residents came into City Hall asking, can we get in touch with Fish and Game or Fish and Wildlife and see what we can do to help this issue that's been going on in town, as you all know. So Andrew is a public information officer with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and he was very willing to come. He's met with staff already, and we then immediately set up 2 workshops so that the public could be able to attend and hear from the Department of Fish and Wildlife, their perspective, how to deal with coyotes, urban coyotes. And there's going to be a second workshop happening for those who can't make it tonight on a weeknight on Saturday, March 5th. And so if you're tuning in from home or watching the playback and you don't have a question answered that you have, then please be sure to come on that Saturday, March 5th at 10 a.m. So without further ado, I'm just going to turn it over to Andrew right now, and he'll get into his presentation. All right. Thank you. And just one more comment. If you have, we'll do the question and answer session afterwards, but please wait for me to come by with the microphone before you start asking your question or making your comment so that it can be picked up for the audio recording. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So as Caroline said, we had, this is a follow-on to a meeting in San Francisco where they have a huge coyote problem in a couple of their parks. And so a number of us met with about 200 people from the neighborhood in the Sunset, and they have all the same issues that you do, mostly dog walking, pets disappearing, things like that. So that was a really well-attended meeting, and then the city asked me if I would come, and I'm not going to PowerPoint you. Nobody wants to sit there and look at slides, especially at 7 o'clock at night. So I'm going to give a little speech and a little presentation about coyotes, about myths and realities, about what the department's position is, what we will do, and maybe more importantly, what we won't do and what we don't do, because there's a lot of misinformation. And then I'm just going to open it up to questions, and we can talk for as long as we want. We have 2 hours. I don't think we'll need the whole time. But I think you really want to have questions. Everybody has a specific instance on specific questions, and I think that's more effective. So coyotes are a real problem, not only here, of course, but statewide. I was in Laguna Beach this morning doing this same meeting with volunteers, and this information is out on the front table there, and I thought this was unbelievably well done documentation and things that they hand out to their citizens. Now, if you've been to Newport Beach, you can imagine the people that live there and the demanding people that they have there, and these door hangers are terrific. So this is the best information that I could even tell you about hazing, about reducing food, things like that. It's all on here. Feel free to take. There should be enough for everybody to take one home. And then we have things in the department that I forgot to bring that I'll bring on March 5th. We have a whole Keep Me Wild program. So coyotes are what's considered a nuisance species, and they have no protection under the law in California under code section. So they can be taken for any reason in any amount. You don't need a license. If, as a hunter, if you were out in an unincorporated area, now if you start blowing off, your shotgun in town, the chief's probably going to have a conversation with you. So no shooting in town. But as I told city staff, if they wanted to, they could start eradicating, but that's a pretty extreme measure. But I just want to be honest with you. And one of the things I want to talk about tonight is I want to be completely honest and forthright with you about what the law is and what is going to happen. So coyotes are everywhere. They're in all 56 counties in California. They are full-on predators, as you've seen. You have a dog or a cat missing, a coyote's only this big. I mean, they're only 24 inches tall, and a big coyote would be 35 pounds. That would be an enormous coyote. I mean, most of them are smaller than you. I mean, a lab is bigger than a coyote, right? Your Lhasa Apso is not, and your Chihuahua is not. So what's happening is coyotes are becoming more aggressive. A lot of reasons for that. Food source is number one. They are becoming less afraid of people, and this is a habituated behavior. This is not, they're not born this way. They're ingrained to be afraid of us, and they're afraid of our voices. If you yell at a coyote, if you come across one and you see one and you yell at it, it's going to run away 99 times out of 100. And we'll talk about that other one going forward. But it's a problem. But the number one thing you can do, which is I think why most of the people are here, is you have to reduce the food sources. You have to reduce what a biologist would call an attractant. And I know there's a feral cat issue here in town, but, and I like to wag my fingers, some of you in this room are feeding them. And some of you in this room are helping wildlife. And as a wildlife manager and as a department representative, I can tell you that please stop. Please stop. Don't do it. Don't help wildlife. I know we're in a drought. Luckily, it's been raining now, but it's going to stop raining pretty soon. The more you help wildlife, the more you end up with dogs and cats missing. Because there's an A, B, C, D relationship. And if you put a bird feeder in your backyard, that bird seed, okay, the birds are going to spill it. They're going to flash out and put the bird seed on the ground. And then a rodent's going to come find that, a mouse or rat, as we talked about before. And then what's coming after the rat? Coyote. What comes after a coyote? A mountain lion. There's a mountain lion up there. I guarantee you there's mountain lions on San Bruno Mountain. Nope, but that's what cats do. That's good. We don't want any confirmed sightings. So what the department does is we don't keep track. We just are not staffed or manned to keep track of data. There's no scientific survey of how many coyotes there are in San Mateo County or in the Bay Area or out in the whole state. There's no realistic way to do surveys of animals. We know there are about 6,000 mountain lions, but we have no idea how many coyotes there are, but there's a lot. And one of the interesting things that does come up, though, is that if you eradicate 10 coyotes, 7 will come back. So eradication is not really the answer. We can live as harmoniously as we can with them, but it's up to you. This is not a coyote problem. This is a people problem. So it's one of the things. A lot of things we're going to talk about tonight is what you can do. Number one thing: dogs and cats. If you have a cat and it's an outdoor cat, that's probably not a whole lot you're going to do about that, right? Because cats, they're not going to come inside. If you have a dog, don't just put her out in the middle of the night to do her business at 2 o'clock in the morning out by herself in the backyard. Walk out there with her. Because a coyote will go over a 6 or an 8 foot fence and grab Tuffy and be back over that 6 or 8 foot fence before you even know what's happening. And there's nothing that can be done. You can call the police and the chief's going to say, sorry. By the time we get there, by the time a police officer gets there, that animal's going to be gone. And the most honest thing that I can tell you about, are you concerned about being bitten, about you personally being, does anybody have any safety issues with coyotes? No, good. That's good. Has anybody had any close encounters? I mean, like, were there close enough?
Within 5 or 6 feet.
Yeah. And did you yell at it and run away, or what? Can you tell us about it?
While I was walking up on Quarry Road, we had a group of people.
No.
Coyote came over a hillside and trotted along the road, and then
Yeah. See, that's perfectly normal behavior. Sorry, I forgot the microphone there. Perfectly normal coyote behavior. Sightings, we get calls in our office every day. Oh, I saw a coyote. Great. Good for you. That's wildlife. but there's a tremendous amount of fear because they're scary. They can be very scary, and if you look at them and they look at you and they snarl at you, I mean, it's the unknown, right? It's fear. So, what you need to do is reduce the attractant. And the number one thing you do is pick up don't let the cat food out overnight, things like that. If you have a real issue in your individual house, then I'm happy to talk to you. We can go look at your house and I can give you some thoughts. But just for general purposes, don't leave dog or cat food out. Even the water, change it. If you let it go for a while, then that animal's going to transfer that scent from their food to the water. You want to leave water out, of course, for the animal, but you want to change it once a day or in the morning and at night. The feral cats, that's a city decision. There's nothing. But the only thing I tell you about feral cats is the coyotes will take care of your feral cat problem for you. But you got to stop feeding them because then they're just going to reproduce. So, well, if nobody has any public safety fears, then that's really good because I was gonna lay the public safety hammer, but we don't need to do that unless we want to. So all the way in the back. So I mean that's really all I have to say about state policy and sort of big department things. Happy to answer all the questions you want, and we can talk for as long as you want.
Since we're about to enter denning season for coyotes, can you talk a little bit about that and concerns with regard to walking dogs?
Yeah, it's on. Just speak up. Yeah, it's denning. So the question was, denning season is starting right now? March. Yep. So denning season. So what every animal looks for is shelter, water, and food. And what a denning does is they'll find a hedge. What a coyote will dig a shallow bowl in the dirt or in an area that's under cover, under a bush, under things like that. And so that's how they reproduce in that den. And like any female, they're going to get very defensive with their pups. So dogs, the best thing I can say about that is put your dog on a leash. Don't let it off the leash. Because then the dog's going to go right over to the den, and then you're going to have a dead dog. Because that mother's going to come out of that den and go after the dog. Oh, yeah, let's use the microphone, please.
Can you hear me? I don't know if this is on. Well, I've had a couple encounters. I live in Pacifica. I don't live in Brisbane.
Yep.
But I had one following me on a trail with my dog. I thought it was somebody's dog that was off leash, and it wasn't 35 pounds. I mean, I'm a dog person. My dog weighs about 80 pounds, and this dog was fluffy, but it was about the same height as my dog. So it had to be more than 35 pounds. And he was not afraid of me at all. Like, I literally thought it was somebody else's dog. I turned around and asked the person behind me, hey, is that your dog? He needs to be on a leash. And he was like, no. And then it ran off into the hill. And it followed us for a good half mile.
Most attacks happen from behind. And so when you're walking your dog, check I was in the military for 22 years. Check your six. Always look behind you. Because and you did exactly the right thing. One thing I would say that if a coyote is following you, turn and address that animal. Because if you're running away from it, you're food. And you're prey, and your dog is prey. So if that happens again, is turn toward it, hold your ground, maintain eye contact, step toward it, look large, which is easy for me. Take your jacket off, wave it around, throw a rock at it. Yeah, don't ever turn your back on a coyote.
And then, so kind of my two other questions are they interbreeding with other dogs that are making them bigger? And because I have 3 dogs.
Yeah.
But one's like 15 pounds, and one's like 80 pounds. Like 2 of them are
right. There's no science to support that coyotes are breeding with domestic dogs, which is good. Yeah. Okay.
Is there any concern with rabies around here?
There's always a concern. Any warm-blooded animal can transmit rabies, but very rare in coyotes. It happens. It's possible, but very rare. What will happen is if a person is bit by a coyote, and that's where public safety comes in, If a person is bit by coyote, you're going to have 15 guys in green trucks with guns in town, because we have to find that offending animal. We shall do this in state code, that an animal attack, a code red, animal attack, we shall make every effort to find that offending animal. And rabies is one of the reasons why. There's science to support that if an animal bites, it'll bite again, because they've been habituated. So if an animal bites a person, there's solid science to say it'll do it again. So we need to eliminate that animal. We're pretty good at it. And an animal will leave DNA on a person or a bite. So and then we can quickly do a quick DNA analysis to find if it's the offending animal. And if we get 2 or 3 right off the bat and we get the offending animal, we'll stop. We're not going to just come, clean out the whole town. But yeah, so absolutely possible, and we want to save you that treatment.
So, I didn't have that happen to me, but a friend of mine had an encounter with 2 coyotes, one from the front and the other one from the back. And so my question is, when a coyote behaves that way, that is clearly being a predator, shouldn't we take action? That coyote should probably be eradicated.
Probably.
So I guess the question is there any kind of program? Can we track them in one way or another? If you're sighting a coyote in a certain area with that kind of behavior, maybe setting up motion cameras to picture them, tag them,
that's possible. That's pretty extreme. What some communities do, and I've talked to the city about, I'm going to, is there's software, right? It's all social media, where you can set up and you go in and tag where you saw that animal. And there's different classifications. Was it a sighting? Was it an encounter? Was it an imminent threat? Was it an attack? So if you were walking along the road up here and you saw a coyote run by, you click the yellow. If you had exactly what you did, you can go and classify that as an encounter or an imminent. If you felt threatened, that's right. But 2 of them, but there's, I would say if you like that, call 911. Just call the police. But by the time they get there, especially if they come in code 3 with lights and sirens, those animals are going to be gone. So carry a stick with you, carry a walking stick, carry a whistle. Those are the big things that you can do as individuals. The stick actually is an interesting psychological, is that it's not for you to go after the animal with. If you make noise with it, if you bang on a tree, bang on a trash can, that shows aggressive behavior to the animal. And the animal's going to recognize that. Coyotes are dogs, right? They're in the dog family. So they're going to recognize that behavior. And then worst comes to worst, if the animal does come at you, you have a little more defense. Right. So I recommend walking sticks for sure. But yeah, you're right. That animal probably is exhibiting behavior that would eliminate, that would warrant eradication, but difficult to do in practice.
Other parts of the United States, a coyote will be fearful of you.
Right.
But here, they're not afraid. And so I'm wondering if we haze them and haze them aggressively.
Yep. Well, and exactly. But you have to haze them. Yeah. And then one of the meeting I was at this morning in Newport Beach is they are setting up what's called a wildlife watch. So it's a neighborhood watch, except it's for wildlife. And we have a whole training program. We'll train you. If you in Brisbane want to set up a wildlife watch program, we will come do it all for you. We'll set it up, but it's not my program. It's your program. Okay. So we can talk about that. But hazing works. It does absolutely work. Christine, she was next. Hazing is verbal reinforcement, negative reinforcement to train the animal to not come back. In its very broad terms.
My name is Frances Harrison. I've lived in Brisbane for about 40 years now, and I walk all over. I constantly see the darling mother with her darling child. The darling child may be in the push cart, but behind, often, the darling child is walking slowly. And I just talked to my friend down in San Carlos, and in Riverside, Emerald Hills, Calamar Park, they've lost 33 animals. Plus, the coyotes were beginning to pack and to chase.
Yep.
And finally, Fish and Game came in and removed some of them. They've lost deer, dogs, cats, squirrels. A lot. 33 in this one particular area, I think in about a month. So it's not, obviously it's not just us, but
Right.
something, I think that we have little small ones here, walk around with their head in the air, they don't know, and they're vulnerable.
Small people or small animals?
I'm talking about the children. I know
Yes.
what happens
Okay.
to animals in cities.
So let me address
Lost
that. Yep.
catnip.
The people, we had 6 coyote attacks on people in Irvine this summer. Every one of them children. Coyote tried to in Cypress Lawn Cemetery, the big famous Hollywood cemetery. A coyote grabbed an infant and was taking it away. It can happen. So those mothers, you have, at some point it's personal responsibility, right? You have to maintain your kids, maintain your dog. A little hard to put a cat on a leash, but luckily there's only been one fatality in California ever from a coyote. But yeah, no, absolutely it happens. Small children. We had 6 children bit this summer in one town in Irvine, and almost one disaster.
What did they do about it?
We killed 11 coyotes.
The wolf is the best predator, but he's big.
Well, wolves are in Siskiyou County, and we want them to stay in Siskiyou County. There's a family now. OR7 is living the dream. Their wolves are fully protected. They're not allowed to be shot for any reason, and the farmers up there are not happy about it. But we don't want wolves in San Mateo County. Absolutely not. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess I'm coming at it from a little bit different perspective, but I used to live up in Chico, California, where I was a student, and while I was up there, hauled lumber, anyway, somebody while I was in their yard bringing them some lumber to do remodel with, had a beautiful little half-grown. It was half collie and half coyote. And anyway, the dog and me fell in love. And it was the most wonderful dog I ever could imagine. So smart like a coyote, but sweet and friendly like a collie. And the reason why I came here, I saw the sign in the park that said Coyote Meeting. And last week, coming over Guadalupe, there was a beautiful big coyote on the highway. I stopped and took it off the road. But it reminded me of the dog I love so much. And because my dog looked like a coyote, but it didn't act like a coyote. It acted sweet and wonderful. So the reason why I came here was pardon me. I removed the coyote from the road and talked to a friend of mine who knew a lot about wildlife, and he suggested that I didn't bury it.
It was dead on the road?
Dead on the
road.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
Big coyote. And he suggested I don't bury it because somebody might see me burying a dog out in the woods, and it would.
Because your neighbors will rat you out in a minute.
Yeah. Anyway, he said just leave it out take it out and let it go back to.
Right. Return it to nature. Yeah.
Yeah. He just told me let God handle it. But my suggestion is as going back and forth over Guadalupe Mountain, 2 or 3 times a week. Every day I see 2 or 3 dead skunks, dead raccoons, dead coyote, and I was going to propose that there should be a sign that says to people that this is the regional park, and they should slow down. And they should watch for wildlife rather than just blast through with their iPad and the texting and all that, and run over so many
Yep.
And
Well, that's a city issue, and there's lots of city people here.
but
Yeah, wildlife crossing. There is a wildlife crossing signs.
Well, unfortunately, wildlife can't read. That's one of the
No,
problems.
right.
But it should be at the beginning of the hill and the other side of the hill, a nice big sign that says you're in a regional park and there's wildlife crossing the road.
No, I agree. I'm with you.
It seems like it should be. They should be alarmed that there is wildlife there and they are going through a park, and to be careful of.
Yeah, I'm with you.
How many skunks I've seen? 15 skunks dead on Guadalupe Highway.
Is it a county park or a city park?
I thought it was a regional
Anybody?
park. I'm not sure.
All right. Well, let's talk to the San Mateo County and see what.
But anyway.
Okay.
That's it.
I'm with you. No, absolutely. Wildlife are critically. We're in the whole ecosystem, right? We just happen to be at the top of the food chain, but it's critically important that we try to maintain the ecosystem as well as we can, because skunk mating season is actually starting right now also. And skunks play a really vital role in the ecosystems where they keep bugs down.
Oh, I've never been infected with skunks.
So, but yeah, they're the skunks are cool, but they're also, and skunks have rabies. Skunks have rabies big time. So don't let a skunk bite you.
So, Andrew, for many years, Brisbane had no coyotes. San Bruno Mountain had no coyotes for probably most of my life, and I've lived here all of my life.
Yep.
And just like we have no deer, because we are
It's landlocked.
landlocked, geographically isolated, completely surrounded by urban development. And it was about 10 years ago when I first saw the coyotes coming back.
Yep.
And there was a lot of speculation, and I'm wondering the truth. Are they related to the tribes of coyotes in Marin? Do you really think they made it across the Golden Gate Bridge, or did someone transport them here? So I'm just curious about that. And so what is the truth in genetic testing and all
Yes,
that
yes, and no.
done? Then also, what do you think that apex population density is going to get to before it starts to decline? Are there any natural predators besides mountain lions? And I don't suppose they eat raccoons, do they?
If they're hungry enough. But raccoon's a whole pack of anger.
Because that's a whole other wildlife issue that has really gotten huge. And
Okay, so let me talk about the genetics. Yes, they are Marin County coyotes. Your coyotes here have come from San Francisco. That came from Marin County right across the Golden Gate Bridge. We have deer go across the bridge all the time. Yeah. So the answer to your question is yes, these are Marin County coyotes. These are San Francisco coyotes, and now they're Brisbane coyotes. So yeah, they came right across the bridge. We get deer on the bridge a couple times a year. They scoot right across in the night. Now remember, a coyote is apex predator, very good at camouflage. They're only this big for the most part, so they can weave in across, down across the bridge, no problem. And I bet, now I haven't been under the bridge, but I bet there's scaffolding and maintenance walkways underneath the road deck.
So is there any projection of how large the population is now and how large we expect it to become?
No on the numbers. There's no way to realistically survey. And nature is amazing in that it's called carrying capacity, and there's only a certain amount of carrying capacity that this will sustain, and they will maintain it somehow. Mother Nature will maintain it. I mean, there's enough killed by cars, which is its only predator, that it'll maintain the population. As far as it'll go to what the habitat will allow.
Could you say also a few words while you're talking to the group about the dangers of trying to poison them and the dangers of using a second-generation rat poison on wildlife?
I mean, I just came from training on that, actually. First, poisoning is absolutely illegal under California law. You cannot poison an animal. It's illegal. Morally, you don't even want a coyote to die that way.
But you can poison a rat. Is that not illegal too?
Right, you can poison a rat.
That's an animal.
Right, yeah, but it's a rodent. It's not a mammal. Now, I don't know the code section. I should have brought my Fish and Game Code, my Title 14. But you cannot poison a coyote. And morally, it's a really crappy thing to do. Actually, I just came from a training scenario a couple weeks ago about these poisons are not like your mother's poisons, right? We used to be able to go buy DDT. You could go buy strychnine practically. Now, the poisons are manufactured in a different way. And any chemist in the room, I'm not. So their chemical compounds are different where they don't have the same effect, and they're actually more toxic to the environment. They have these second generation pesticides have very specific targets that they've genetically engineered the poison to affect. And they don't manufacture coyote poison. So if you're taking something that's meant to kill rats, and even though I guess rats are mammals, right? I guess rodents are mammals.
Yeah, they're mammals.
They're biologically very different, obviously. So yeah, it's just don't poison. Don't try to poison, and you're going to poison your neighbor's dog is what you're going to do.
And your children and the birds and everything else.
Yeah.
The second generation rodenticides are designed so that the rat doesn't die in your house, so it doesn't stay.
Yeah, it takes it and then
it
leaves.
goes somewhere else to die, and then something else eats it. That poison is sustained in the second body,
yep,
in the third body, and you find dead birds and other dead wild.
We work hand in hand with UC Davis and the Oiled Wildlife Care Network, and they have generations of animals that are poisoned from eating and eating and eating. So, yeah, don't do it. Yeah.
I have a question. We're talking about denning.
You speak up a little bit. No, it's not the mic's recording you. I just can't hear you.
Okay, well, we're talking about denning.
Yep.
How close to homes will the coyotes den?
They're going to den where there is shelter.
Okay.
So your yard, they could den in your yard if you've got a overgrown rhododendron that's this big, then and those are real fluffy rhododendrons, right? What are those big fluffy ones? Mom, what are those ones in the backyard? My mom and dad are here, so. It's rhododendron, right? What's the? Oleander. That kind of hedgy one. Yeah. But the stalk comes up and they're only this far off the ground, right? They'll get under there and they'll dig out that root system and den under there because they need shelter. Anywhere. Could be in your front yard. So trim your bushes. Get the weed whacker out there. If you do it yourself, get the chainsaw. Get the guy you do your yard. Clean up that front yard. Especially if you live where your back door backs up to the mountain. The ridge. Clean up your own yard. Look in your yard. You go home tonight. I hope that when you go home tonight, you'll look at your yard differently and think, could a coyote live under that? And if they do, yeah, trim it up.
I was just going to say, the reason they probably didn't have coyotes here 10 years ago is there used to be a pack of feral dogs that used to kill like all the deer and break into the 4-H club, and they pretty much probably kept the coyotes out of the area.
Yep.
But I used to work for animal control, so I know we had mountain lions. Like we found them dead, and we found their bodies throughout the county and their paw prints. So just because we don't see them doesn't mean they're not here. And their food. Yeah, and their food. But
we just captured a mountain lion in Santa Cruz Saturday night.
Yeah. But my other comment is, we all live here because we like wildlife,
yep.
right? Like we want to live in a pretty place. We want to live where there's critters out there, and I lock my garbage cans so the raccoons don't come in, and I make sure I sniff the backyard before I let the dogs out so they don't get attacked, don't kill the skunk, and then have to get quarantined. So I mean, That's all good. I think with the coyotes, though, it's more organized. Like, they are more brazen, and it's something that even if I'm doing everything right, if my neighbor's not, it's affecting me too. So I think maybe a couple people expressed interest in this hazing aspect. And I've looked it up online a little bit, and I know a couple of my neighbors I'm trying to get involved.
Well, we'll come teach you how to haze.
Yeah.
We have a program, we'll come teach you how to do it. If you want to get your neighbors, your little group of houses, however big, from 5 to 500, if you want to do a wildlife watch program, we'll come down and do it. But it's not particularly risky, but you do have to steel yourself that you're going to be looking at a wild animal. But yeah, no, hazing works, and hazing can be simple as yelling at it, throwing a rock at it, throwing a tennis ball at it, throwing a golf ball at it. You don't want to throw a Pro V1 at it, but BB guns, they're effective. Paintball is effective, but yeah. Any kind of pepper spray, not so much. Ammonia, a little. It's just not. It's not as effective for some reason. You want to be very careful with any kind of bang, because then the chief's going to have a chat with you. And they're incredibly dangerous to law enforcement, because if somebody in your neighbors sees you out there with a gun and they call 911 and their officers roll up, a paintball gun looks just like a real gun. Even, I don't care if it's orange or yellow, it looks like a weapon. And how many times you watch the news and see somebody got killed because they had a paintball gun in their hand? Just don't do it.
So I walk around with a horn.
Horns, great. I have a horn. I got some mace. I keep it in my truck, but it's for public safety more than anything. But on a coyote, if I go out walking, I have a little thing of mace. But the horn is great because they don't like the noise. Yeah, just those little air horns. You get them at any, yeah. So if you're out walking, air horn and a walking stick.
So I have the mic. I just wanted to kind of focus on what you were talking about, how eradication doesn't really seem to work, not just with the coyotes, but like raccoons. And just that people know that once you just kill them and take them away, you're just opening a territory up for new animals. So
exactly.
For the hazing and harassing the animals, making your area not a comfortable place for them to be is really ideal, because then you're not going to get a new one in. Once those ones leave, nobody's going to want to come hang out there. So I just feel like that's...
Well, nature will, like the whole nature of hordes of vacuum, right? The same thing. So if the carrying capacity is 300 coyotes and the city hires a trapper and kills 100 of them, next time around, those 80 of those 100 are going to be back. And the next year, those 20 will be filled in. Because it's any animal population is going to increase to the carrying capacity of the habitat. Thank you. That's just the way it is. And unless you go full bore on eradication and keep a trapper on staff full time, you have to live in where you live. You have to live with that carrying capacity. Now, what you do to the microphone? Who's got the mic? What you do, you can try to eliminate, because really these animals, they don't want any part of us. But what you're doing is giving them the easiest possible meal by leaving out trash, by not cleaning up your barbecue, by leaving your cat out, by feeding a feral cat, by leaving stuff on the ground where a rat can come in or a mouse to draw in the predator. Yes, sir.
What's a coyote's range? How much ground can they cover?
They can cover a lot. They typically don't. They'll generally eat within a half mile of their last meal, which I just learned this morning, actually. So if they find a diner, like all of us, right? You have a restaurant, you got a favorite restaurant, you go back to that. When I was meeting with the city, they were talking about there's someplace, I think, down here by the tracks where the feral cat community is kind of out of control. That's coyotes are just going to go there because that's where the food is. And the cats just continue to breed, right, because they're unchecked. So they can go as far as they want to, but they typically don't. And here we're landlocked in the urban South City on the other side of the hill. So they'll stay up there. There's no coyotes are very social animals. They're dogs. They're in the dog family. So they will pack and they will run and hunt in groups. So it's, I said there's only been one fatality, and serious injuries are very few. But you do get bit. I mean, there are actual puncture bites. And nobody wants to go through that rabies protocol. And just so you know, there's no actual cure for rabies. The protocol, people die from rabies. You can die very quickly and very painfully from rabies. There is a medical protocol, but it's not a cure. So, yeah. Yes, ma'am. Where's the mic?
Hi. So I know we're having a lot of discussion about people seeing coyotes, but I'd like to get a little information, and perhaps this isn't something for you, but for staff, on how many actual adverse incidents we've had in our community. Because, we hear the stories of somebody saw a coyote or has had an encounter, and we always have every missing dog, every missing cat is not attributed to something else. It's attributed to the coyotes, and we don't really know unless somebody actually sees the animal get snatched. But I don't know how much of an actual problem we're having with people walking their dogs and, coyotes ready to snatch them out from under your nose, so to speak.
Well, I know the state, we don't have data. We have a dispatcher here who can probably takes, you told me half your calls are animal-related calls.
Well, I am the animal control dispatcher.
Yeah,
so
okay.
All my calls are
all right, so as far as I know, at least I've never heard of a serious injury in town.
County, I've not heard of one.
Yeah, even in the county. But it's when you're in this kind of environment, it feeds on itself, right? We get this a lot with bears and mountain lions, where I saw a bear, I saw a mountain lion. It feeds on itself. People see what they want to see. There's a tremendous amount of fear associated with coyotes because they're scary looking. Even though they're small, they're scary looking. And, oh my God, it ate a cat. So how much of a problem, there's no way to know definitively how many animals have been taken in town, in the county, in the Bay Area, in the state. There's just no way to really know without data collection. And there are ways to do that, but it involves all of you. So to answer your question, we have no way to know. It's probably not as prevalent as you think it is, or as the community or the group thinks it is. Yeah, definitely cats. And like you had solid numbers because they had data-driven research somehow where they had 33 animals in a month or 6 weeks taken because in that community in San Carlos?
San Carlos, Belmont.
Yeah. So they have a mechanism to keep track of it. And we can do that here. If you all want to do that, if the city wants to engage, there are ways that the department can help start a program like that. Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember O'Connell's question. The police department has received calls of sightings of coyotes, but no actual incidences reported where a coyote has actually even gone after a dog or of any kind. It's generally just the sightings that we get the calls on. And like Andrew said, it's a panic. People will panic and say, I've seen it in after school hours and I'm concerned with the kids walking home from school. So generally we'll send an officer up there to check. We will always respond.
Yep.
We'll send an officer out
too.
to check the area, to be visible, just to assure the community and the resident who's calling it in that that there's somebody there to address it should something happen. But generally, an answer to your question is just sightings.
How effective?
Let me get her, and then I'll come to you, and then the Eagle sweatshirt.
I was also going to address your question. I'm on the mountain quite a bit, and I've had probably at least half a dozen encounters. They've all been absolutely benign. I've seen two, a male and a female, in the Owl and Buckeye area, all the way over into Brisbane Acres. I've seen the same male from that area into Owl and Buckeye Canyon. He's very curious. He's young. He's healthy. He's about maybe 2 years old, maybe max 35 pounds. I have not had a negative encounter with either the male or the female. I believe there is a den up on San Bruno Mountain off of Fire Road 2 or Army Road, in the really heavy scrubbed area above that road to the approximate, let's say, northwest. Thank you. So I would probably be aware of that as you move forward and as you recreate. I was asked about dog regulation. Dogs are dogs are not allowed on San Bruno Mountain State and County Park within the county-owned areas. They are allowed on leash within the California Department of Fish and Wildlife area, which is at the base of Owl and Buckeye Canyon and does extend to the Trinity area. On leash only, and everyone is expected to clean up after their dogs.
Okay, I want to hear then in the white sweatshirt. Well, we want to record for people watching so they can hear you. No, right here.
My question is there anything four-legged that is acceptable to where we live, people, that can predate the coyote?
Mountain lion. That's it.
How do we know the mountain lion is taking care of business? I mean, I'm delighted mountain lion moving on, but...
Well, it's nature, right? And the department policy and the city policy is to keep it wild. We don't want to interfere with nature.
No, I didn't mind.
I misunderstood your question.
Do you know do you know if it is the mountain lion that kills the coyote? Can you tell when you get the carcass?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, we can. Yeah, the biologists are very good. Our biologists they're large animal examination and wildlife officers too. If a mountain lion has a very distinctive way of killing. That's very. Afternoon, sir. This is Lieutenant James Ober, who is the lieutenant supervisor for the peninsula. So he's one of your game wardens, one of 3 or 4 for this area. I asked him to come by. Thanks for coming. Super guy. So we've been talking about lots of different coyotes and policies. So when James is here, if anybody has any very specific law enforcement questions, now would be the time to. So we'll go here and then we'll come back to that.
I've had several sightings right in my neighborhood, but I've never called them in. Does the police department want people to call in sightings?
If you just see them, there is no need to call. But if there is ever a sense of fear that you would like us to do a drive-by or be present, definitely give us a call. We encourage, any and all calls.
Great.
Isn't that a perfect opportunity to haze when you see them in your neighborhood?
Absolutely. Get the lid of your trash can and a stick, and go out there and haze them and yell at them. If you got tennis balls, throw them. That's the perfect opportunity. Hazing will work. So, who's got the microphone?
I've got the mic. So, since we've had nothing but benign sightings in our area, I'm a little curious why we're referring to the coyotes as a problem. And then the other question, more specifically, I have is I wonder if anyone in town has seen any. You said that they can climb over fences. Have there been any sightings in the center part of town where they have gone over people's fences, or are they only out on the mountain and out on Quarry Road and so on?
Well, okay. The word problem is because the city asked us to come because there's a perceived problem in the city. and that several animals have gone missing. So have there been any actual incidents? No. Are there several pets missing? Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're trying to get ahead of it a little bit with this and next Saturday. So yeah, I mean, it's a problem in that it's a potential problem. But is there a rampant rabid coyote running through town? No. So would you talk about coyotes from the LED perspective on what the law is and the code? And so we're recording this, so if you could listen to this. And okay.
Usually the most common thing that comes up for law enforcement, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, it's mostly for the recording, or if you can stand here.
So the most common thing we get regarding coyotes from the law enforcement perspective is in regards to depredation. So depredation means that the coyotes have killed your pet, injured your pet, and then we deal with assisting people who have either don't want to haze and they want to protect their property. Frequently it's in more rural areas than Brisbane, and we go over what the laws are. If a coyote is in the act of injuring or causing injury to your property, meaning like your pets, and can be livestock as well, which is more common with the ranchers, that you are permitted by law in areas where you legally can to, legal definition is take, which means you can kill the coyote which is in the act of doing that. Are there any questions about that or concerns about that? Yes, ma'am.
I think it's on. Yeah.
If you had a situation where you found a den on your property, would we call you and have you come and take that away, or would you just leave it?
So you're asking they're just living on your property?
Yeah.
We don't have a legal recourse to just relocate the coyotes. Legally, we're not allowed to just move them from one area to another.
Okay. And then, do you have a hazing program for raccoons? Because I'm much more frightened of them. They're very, very aggressive.
So similar things that you do with coyotes will also scare away raccoons. The most common thing for raccoons is eliminating their food source. And so we get a lot of issues with that, where some people put out cat food for raccoons and it becomes an attractant. They become desensitized and start looking for people for food. Very frequently they can get into garbage cans, and so they sell garbage cans specifically designed to exclude raccoons. Sometimes it's not you, and sometimes it's a neighbor, or sometimes it's an apartment complex. But usually when we respond to calls of raccoons who are causing property damage, we usually try to help the person who is requesting it find the source of what's causing the attraction to the raccoons in the area. And frequently when we are able to determine a source that's their food source that's attracting the raccoons to your area, and if the landowners who are causing the problem work with us and eliminate that, very frequently the person who initially called does not have the same problem with raccoons. It doesn't always happen, but it can.
Oh, so something about to help as far as deterring the raccoons. I work for animal control. I'm one of the dispatchers. And is we often recommend to people, like when they're sleeping in their trees or under their houses, or to play a radio, like a small hand radio constantly, just for even a whole day in that area, that they don't like people talking and the noise. They're trying to sleep. They're not trying to hang out in some place where, where it's loud. And the other thing is, I don't know if we could just maybe mention that just seeing them out during the day does not mean that they have rabies. And what is the likeliness of that? Because we get a lot of that people see our wildlife out during the day in this county because they can be active during the day.
Sure.
But automatically they assume it's out during the day.
Oh, yeah.
It has the rabies. So, I don't know if you guys,
Right. It's not to kill a mockingbird, just because a wild dog's out on the street.
I've got a 6-foot stick on my back porch. It's about half inch round. It puts the fear of God into raccoons. get one. I mean, you can smack them, you can smack the side of the house, you can smack the railing, and
Noise is a huge deterrent.
yeah, it totally freaks them out.
Oh, good. Good tip. Okay. No more? All right. So, again, coyotes are, it's not a coyote problem, it's a people problem. You know, you can take steps and you can do, this is in your hands. The department, we are happy to help. We're happy to help work with the city. We're happy to have an individual homeowner. If you need help, if you've got a big problem, then, you know, we've got people that can come out and help. We're not big on house calls, so unless it's really important. But we're happy to do it. You're happy to welcome to call me. I've got a stack of cards. James has got some fantastic wardens working for him in this area, and they're going to hopefully come by on next Saturday the 5th, and we can talk more. But if there's no more questions, then that's great. We wrap this up. Yep.
About cats. Really, people should have indoor cats. Cats are huge predators to birds and other wildlife. And cats are. I love cats, and cats really should be indoor pets.
Yeah. Well.
If you raise them from the time they're kittens as indoor pets, they're quite happy, and they learn how to be leash trained. We had ours trained to walk on a leash around the yard. But they're huge predators, and they kill millions of wild birds and wildlife every year.
Yep.
And so really consider having your cats be indoor cats.
Yeah.
And if you can't handle that, at least have the grace to bring them indoors at night so they don't become coyote food.
Yep.
Really, it breaks my heart when I hear people losing their pets that way.
Yep. And I'm not a pet owner myself, but we certainly sympathize. And we get it, because I get calls every day from somebody in California saying, my pet got eaten, and what are you going to do about it?
Or run over by a car.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Oh, I was just going to ask about how would one go about to see the possibility of putting signs on going over Guadalupe Mountain that would, warn people.
Well, that's either county or Caltrans, but we can work on that offline. I'll get you to the right people.
Oh, good. Thank you.
It's not really a form for in here, but we'll get you to the right people with the county.
Thanks.
So. I would encourage all of you to take one or both of these home with you. I know they're Newport Beach programs, but the information is tremendous. They did a great job on these, and hand them out to your neighbors. Take the whole stack with you if you've got people. If you want to, I've just got to take them home if you don't take them. So. Take them and hand them out to your neighbors. Put them on your neighbors' doors if you've got a problem neighbor. Maybe put one of these on their door hanger. A little peer pressure never hurts. So I'm willing to stick around. James and I can stick around for a few minutes. He's got young kids, so I want to get him out of here. But
can you tell us what scat is?
Scat?
Yes.
Poo.
That's from the
It's poo. Scat is poo. Yeah. It's just the biologic term. Leavings. Yes. Yep. Well, digestive systems. Interesting, and you're more of a biologist than I am, but like bears, their reproductive system is only like 15% efficient. So they only retain like 15% of what they eat. I don't know what it is in coyotes, but they don't digest all the way. They don't have pancreases and appendixes they don't always digest all the way. Yeah, nature's pretty grim. It's pretty grimy.
Taught by a science teacher that you can eat coyote scat if you have no food, because it contains so many nutrients that would help you survive.
Okay, well let's wrap up the formal part of this, and we'll stick around for a few minutes if you have individual questions or talk, and we're happy to be here.
Thank you, Andrew and Lieutenant Elmer, for coming.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Oh, and I told you that we invited Lieutenant Obert. He did a DUI on the way here as well. He was protecting public safety.